I've watched probably every episode of SpongeBob since the very first episode, way before my daughter was born, by the way. But each episode I've probably watched about 30 times. And that episode is the only episode that talks about how to become an entrepreneur, and actually does a damn good job illustrating that. So, I just love that episode, that's why I had to show you, but it's actually the shortened version, the 5-minute version, and the name of the SpongeBob episode is called Chocolate with Nuts. And then there's, come on, of course you guys have to think it's something else. Do you notice I was sort of gesturing over this way? I was not gesturing toward you, I was gesturing over here. But it's a classic SpongeBob. And so I wanted to actually point out some of the lessons that as we begin today with SpongeBob in that particular episode. And those in webinar land, if you were unable to see the episode, just go to YouTube and type in SpongeBob Chocolate with Nuts and get the 5-minute version of it, and you'll be able to actually get the lessons. So how many of you have actually seen the lessons that were in that episode? Just based on what you saw. Can you shout out some of the ones that you actually picked up from that episode?
Be a good negotiator.
One second, we're having some technical issues here. I heard myself though. Alright, I'm going to see if we have it now, yeah? Why don't you ask Tori?
Yeah, that's why.
Okay. Oh, that's fine. Alright, I think we're back on track here. Alright, so some of the wisdom that you found in that SpongeBob episode, Chocolate with Nuts. Do you guys know some of the things that popped out from that episode?
Upselling.
Well, let's start from the very beginning of the episode. The very beginning of the episode was about SpongeBob getting Squidward's magazine by accident in the mail. And it was a magazine about what? It was kind of like a Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous kind of magazine. And so SpongeBob starts flipping through the magazine and he says, well, what do all these people do to be able to live in houses like this, right? And what does Squidward say?
They're entrepreneurs.
They're entrepreneurs, that's right. There can't be a problem because I actually heard... Okay, why don't we take... I think there's a problem with her computer. Let's go back out. Go back outside and let's work with your computer because I have a feeling it has something to do with her. And not and if that's the issue, then after this presentation, I'll likely be strangling her. which is usually typical on a day-to-day basis that I get to see her, by the way. So the wisdom. Entrepreneurship, right? Yeah. To become an entrepreneur, self-employment. Selling stuff to people. What kind of stuff?
Something they like.
Something not just that they like. Sell something that they want, right? That they really want. Sales skills, obviously, so they had to learn how to develop sales skills. And obviously the ability to approach people, which meant going door to door, right? And then having that tenacity and persistence, even though they were dealing with failure and rejection in the very beginning, they just kept moving forward. And of course, tweaking, this is the most important part, especially with the money funnel stuff that you guys are going to learn as we go along in the next couple of days, is tweaking things that are not working. So if you're finding that one of your sales strategies or one of your funnels or one of your marketing plans isn't working, what do? Just throw up your arms, give up, and then walk away? No, you keep tweaking it until it actually works out for you. And then you hit every possible prospect. You feel all of your leads. I actually forgot one in there. I forgot one in there. Do you guys remember which one I forgot? There's one I don't have. So who was the dude who ended up buying everything at the very end?
Whoever really wanted it.
Yeah, no, but what kind of customer do I usually... You guys that have been around the money funnel stuff for a while would know that there's a certain kind of customer that we love to target. The fanatic. Thank you, Ed Jackson, for being such a studious student. The fanatic. We want the fanatical crowd. We want somebody who's a fanatic for our product or our service or whatever we're offering. So that is probably the most critical point of all of this. So we can learn a lot from just watching cartoons, right? So what is the money funnel strategy? Many of you are probably like, okay, well, I know a little bit about Monica's money funnel stuff. What is it really about? And how can I use it to profit, particularly profiting with a very successful part-time online business? And the answer is, well, it's actually, in my opinion, the most cutting-edge aggressive info marketing method for now and beyond. I have to warn you guys, times are changing very quickly in our economy. And if you think that we're going to walk away from this unscathed with all the things that have been happening with us shutting down the economy and turning it back on and shutting it down and turning it back on, and like it's a light switch or something, think again. Because that's not going to be the case. You cannot, we talked about the train the other day, you can't slow a locomotive going 120 miles an hour and then have it stop with a screeching halt. And then think all of a sudden you're just going to turn the engine back on and like a BMW is going to go from 0 to 120 in 3.3 minutes or seconds rather. It's not the way it works. And so what many economists have been telling us, the smart ones anyway, the ones that live in the real world of economics versus some professor at some college that doesn't exist in the real world of economics, real sharp economists have been saying that what's happening right now is equivalent to a jet airplane that lost all of its engines and it's just coasting before it's going to just crash. So those of you that understand how economics work and understand that you can't just turn on and off and on and off an economy just like that and think everything's just going to be back up to speed in no time, think again. Think again. And so the good news for you guys is that being a little bit ahead of the curve will allow you to be able to not only seek out the opportunity, but to set up a highly successful online business to where it will be a seamless transition between whatever business or whatever employment you have now to your brand new online business. Especially if you do all the stuff I teach you in the next couple of days, right? How many of you plan on doing everything that I teach you in the next couple of days? I'm noticing the front row, no hands up. I'm really concerned here. Okay.
And they're the closest.
I know, they're the closest to me, like I would notice, right? So, the good news, there's good news and bad news. I should ask you guys, what do you want to hear first? The bad news. The bad news is that this is not easy. That's the bad news. The good news is this is the fastest you will get from A to Z in any highly successful business by simply being here and starting the process of doing everything I tell you to do over the next couple of days. Things will seem to be a little tough in the beginning. It doesn't have to be that way. I always remember our ancestors who first came into New York 100 plus years ago from the ships, and that was after being on a ship or a small boat being tossed in the ocean for months on end coming from Europe. I didn't really get the full crux of this process. First of all, I get seasick, so I don't think I would have made it anyway. But I actually went 2 years ago to the port that my ancestors from Italy came from, which was in Sicily. And so I didn't really fully understand. First of all, when I went to Sicily, I'm like, there's still nothing going on over there. I can clearly see why they left. There was nothing to do. As far as for work, for money, quality of lifestyle just wasn't there. And when our boat docked, they actually mentioned that it was the same dock that they all left from. And I often always wondered, why did my family say that they were from Messina, which is a part of Sicily, but yet on all of their documentation coming into the U.S., it says Palermo. And then I understood, it's because that's where the dock was. And so they had to mark down when they came to the U.S. exactly what port they came in from. So, because there was always a disparity all these years, and then I understood. It's amazing what you understand when you actually start the process of world travel, which, by the way, this business will allow you to do. And so I think about how they were back then. And I think about what things were like for them at that time. And what happened when they finally did go through the arduous process of getting on a ship and being sicker than a dog. And some of them got here and actually were physically sick. It was an interesting trip because we went to New York for a few days before we actually went to Europe. And I took my daughter to the Statue of Liberty, and you could actually see the old hospital on the island. And if you're spiritual or if you have any kind of connection in that way, you can definitely feel a lot of activity over there. It's just very sad. The energy is very sad because you could see that you could feel that a lot of people came into this country and they were not well enough for them to be released in the population, and many of them actually were sent to these hospitals to die. And so they made this long trip for the American dream, all these months, just to end up in a hospital to die. And you can feel, even all these years later, that deep sense of sadness. I strongly recommend that every American goes to see the Statue of Liberty, ends up on the little, what's the name of the island? Ellis Island, that's right. And goes there, because then you'll fully appreciate what all of your ancestors had to go through to get to this wonderful country we have. And so what happened after that? Say they were cleared. They were well enough to be cleared to go into the mass population. Then what happened? Well, they usually connected with family because many of them had family that called for them. Basically, they sent letters saying, hey, everything's great. We set up shop here. Come on out. We'll give you a place to live for a short time until you get a job, etc. I might be able to help you get a job. But back then, they didn't have really labor laws. There wasn't a U.S. Labor Department, hence why people like Jimmy Hoffa were able to come up through the unions, because there simply wasn't anything to protect anyone, so people would be working in sweatshops for 16, 18 hours a day for almost nothing. And these jobs were in high demand. They were in high demand. All the people that would go to the docks at 4 o'clock in the morning, they were only going to take a handful of guys, and you'd have 200 guys showing up at 4 in the morning to get whatever labor job they could get on the docks that day. And they did this day in and day out, every single day. Why do you think they did that? Their backs were up against the wall, and they came to this land of opportunity. And their family and people that came over before them said there are opportunities here, but this is what you have to do. You have to work your way up, right? So fast forward 100 or so years later, and here we are. And I'm dealing with students who complain because they're unable to do a very simple website thing, and they're very easily throwing in the towel and going online to watch a Netflix show or something like that. I can't do this, they say. And then they give up. I'm a very humble individual because I constantly think about where my roots are. But not just me, it's the roots of all of us. Aren't we pretty much all the same people? It's very rare when I meet someone who actually comes from full American Indian stock. So the rest of us came from some other place. Whether we came here voluntarily or forcefully or whatever, we all came here on a boat from someplace else at some point. Because everybody wanted to come here for the dream. And so what happened to us from that point back then to now, where we suddenly think that if it's a little hard, we got to throw in the towel and do something easier? What happened to us as a people? I mean, what happened to us?
Everything was handed to us.
Well, I mean, not everything wasn't handed to all of us. Maybe to some of us. And certainly in comparison to how it was 100 years ago. So even if you grew up in the 60s or the 70s, certainly things would be a lot easier for you than if you grew up in the 20s. You know, where they were still dealing with the Spanish flu back then. The 30s, what were they dealing with then?
Depression.
Hardest depression ever. And so, where did we lose ourselves? And these are the things I think about at the very moment when maybe something isn't working out right, or I want to give up. And then I think, how foolish am I thinking here, because I'm making millions of dollars on the internet. And people 100 years ago didn't even know what the hell the internet was. It did not exist back then. That was not a possibility. They had to stand around on a dock in the cold, in the rain at 4 o'clock in the morning to try to get one job out of only 5, and they had competitors, 200-300 guys showing up to maybe be selected. That's what their life was. So please, the reason I'm telling you this is because it's so easy when you hit a glitch, some kind of technical issue, to just throw your hands up. Or if you find that your funnel is fully built out and you did a marketing campaign and didn't get as many, calls or orders or whatever. Well, just the mere fact that you did get some calls, that means it's working. We just have to tweak some things, just like SpongeBob did. He had to tweak his sales presentation, right?
Correct.
Yeah, well, I'm not entirely sure I would just lie, but the fact of the matter is, it's a cartoon, they exaggerate everything. But that's the point, he had to tweak his marketing strategy. So maybe presenting the chocolate as is was kind of boring, so he just spiced it up a little bit, right? And said it was for beauty, or, and if you watch the whole episode, you see that he was telling some guy that would help him grow hair, he was some bald dude, and, the episode went on and on and on. He was tailoring it to his clientele. And so, that's why I love that episode. It's just so, it's actually probably, if that's the only thing you ever had to watch about entrepreneurship, you would get it. You would have to wade through dozens of business books to get it. So please note that everything that I teach you, even though it seems like it might get a little hard, it's not hard compared to what we all came from. And so this will help you not only survive in the upcoming very hard times that we have, but you'll also be able to thrive. I haven't done much with my businesses since I set them up. I will set my businesses up. And then when I get a funnel that's working really well, I essentially set it up on autopilot. And I'll teach you the types of things that I've been doing to do that over the last several years, and we'll be learning that between now and tomorrow evening. And so when you set things up on autopilot, money just keeps coming in, even though you might not be really doing your hardcore marketing promotions like you're used to. And I was even looking at my numbers yesterday. I have numbers everywhere, so I have the most scattered system ever, because I'm one of the old school internet marketers. So I started off with WordPress, and I started off with some of my older, obsolete almost, merchant accounts, which allow you to take Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. So I have some of these older systems that collided with the newer systems, and then I have other systems I tried that didn't really work out. We talked about this with the Infusionsoft, which is now called Keep.com. And I have so many systems swirling around in there that you guys have a benefit coming into this now, not having to struggle with trying to put everything together and tape everything together and try to daisy chain things together like I had to. Because the problem for somebody like me and some of the other older internet marketers out there is that we're stuck with those older systems that are kind of obsolete, but we have to keep because we still have stuff moving through those. And so I just love the fact that I could start you guys from scratch with one system and just keep everything kind of encapsulated like that. But I was looking at my numbers from one of my newer systems, which is the ClickFunnels system. I've had that for about 6 years now, since the very beginning. And by the beginning, I mean the beginning of their company, ClickFunnels. And I was looking at my numbers, and I'm like, even through the so-called upcoming recession/depression that everybody keeps talking about, my numbers are probably 3 or 4 times higher than they usually are. Why do you think that might be?
Laid off properly.
Yeah, so a lot of what I sell is selling the dream, right? I help people build businesses. I help people build real estate empires. I help people with starting a business. And while people, when they're content, they sit on their ass and do nothing, many times they will get off their ass when they start feeling the pinch, as they are now. And it's very good for business for me. And this means it's like the tide is lifting all the boats. So I do a lot of different things. I have my real estate stuff. I have my money funnel stuff. I have my Lost Chapters and Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich stuff. Which one do you think is doing well?
All of them.
All of them. Because they all have something to do with some kind of self-help, personal development, business development. It's all the same thing. The Slice is doing really well, which is the stock trading program we sell. And so you guys can get in on the action on all of these things. Or you can develop your own product line, which I'm showing my apprenticeship group student, Travis, how to do. And he's building his entire empire. He's essentially, so a lot of you know I'm getting out of the real estate training. So I'm showing him everything that I know and everything I wish I did know when I first got started off with building these funnels for real estate. So we've been working a lot together and getting his whole empire set up. What I love about Travis is he does absolutely everything that I say. So if I actually told him this evening, you got to run down the street and back with his underwear on, you probably wouldn't end up doing it.
It's tough, but I'd probably give it a whirl.
Give it a
Guess
whirl.
what you're doing later.
Yeah. Well, the good news is you're from the Midwest, so the cold won't really affect you much.
Yeah.
So.
I can be.
Yeah. Anyway, TMI.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that the old ways of online marketing strategies, how many of you understand what the old ways are? Like when I say old ways, I mean like 2010, 2012, 2015. What am I talking about there with internet strategies dating back to even a handful of years ago? What does that mean?
Pay-per-click.
Pay-per-click, stuff that used to work like Google, they used to call it Google AdWords, now it's Google Ads. Things that everybody was making millions on, which, by the way, out of all the platforms I've ever made a lot of money on online, Google AdWords was the one that I made the most money with. But what happened in 2010?
Google slap.
Yeah, Google slap. There was a couple slaps. There was the penguin slap. There was the panda slap, which I think was the one that took me out. And that was in July of 2010. And ever since then, I mean, I've tried a multitude of different online platforms with marginal success, including but not limited to Facebook, Yahoo, which is on the Bing MSN platform. I've also done a lot of YouTube ads, which still works if you could tweak it right. And I'm going to talk about this as we go along, but if you could tweak your YouTube ads correctly, then you can still make YouTube work because Google owns YouTube. And so it's still through the Google Ads network where you have to set up your ads. That's basically the only online strategy I would even recommend anybody do in this day and age. But because the rest of the stuff doesn't work anymore. So I cringe whenever I'm looking at my feed on my phone for Facebook, and usually I do it to look for the ads and stuff. And I cringe because I'm noticing that there are fewer and fewer people that are on Facebook now advertising. Well, there's fewer and fewer people on Facebook, period. You know, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but like I won't look at Facebook for 3 or 4 days, and all of a sudden I'll just go through the feed. I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't this on my feed at the very top 3 days ago? Like, has nobody? I have like 5,000 friends, which most I don't even really know who all these people are. But you think that more things would be going through with 5,000 people, like more postings and stuff. And yet I'm running into the same posts every few days, which is really alarming because it just means nobody's posting anything, which means nobody's on Facebook anymore. So Jesse still works with Facebook, and I'm alarmed that he's still doing that because I'm trying to get him off of Facebook because there's only a matter of time before that whole platform gets pulled completely. And the people that are 100% on any platform should be alarmed, especially if it's online. Because you can't put all your eggs in one basket in that way. It's not recommended. So pretty much anything that you can think of that was between 5 and 10 years ago that was an online huge moneymaker doesn't work anymore. So we're not going to be focusing in on those things, obviously. And then, of course, you do have to quickly adapt to the changes. Now, how many of you would rather not have to change a Facebook ad or a YouTube video ad or a Yahoo pay-per-click ad once a day? How many of you would like to change them once a day because you got to stay up on the times and the marketing, that you have to do? That's what I thought. Nobody wants to do that. So would it shock you to know that many of my offline marketing strategies never change at all? Not even one word. And running the same ad or running the same direct mail marketing campaign for years and years and years, changing nothing. Now, there's one thing I changed with my Lost Chapters of Napoleon Hill. I don't know if you guys have got it in your folder. I don't know if she put them in the folders or not. But there's an invitation card in there, which we're going to be talking about tomorrow. That's the only thing I change once a year. And what do you think I change once a year on that card?
The number of years.
The number of years, because Napoleon Hill came out with, Think and Grow Rich in 1937. So I remember starting the process of sending those mailers out, and I remember it was 81 years, and then, okay, it's the next year I got to now spend 82 years, and now I got to change it from 82 to now 83 years, and then it's going to be pretty soon 84. So I literally change one number per year, and that's the only piece I change anything on. Everything else stays the same. And so even though many of you think, well, these offline marketing strategies, they seem really ridiculously expensive, they seem time-consuming, I don't know how the process gets started, which is something we're really going to dive deeply into tomorrow. But I'm going to show you just how freaking easy it is, because you never have to change anything. Isn't it easier just to print a bunch of the same thing and keep mailing the same thing out? You don't even have to do the mailings yourself. You hire your free child slave labor. You have a lot, at your immediate disposal. Yeah, or neighborhood kid. There's going to be a lot of people that are willing to do things to make extra money. I'm starting to notice it even in my area. How many of you have that Nextdoor app, or I call it the neighborhood app, but it's an app for your local area, and it encompasses an umbrella of neighborhoods that are local to you. And I'm already starting to notice people posting little things like, hey, I just lost my job. If you guys have any side work, people are willing to do anything now. I'll watch your animals. I'll build a bookcase for you. I mean, the most obscure, ridiculous things they want to now do. When only 3 months ago, nobody applied for the jobs that I had posted in Monster.com and ZipRecruiter.com. Because why? Why was nobody responding to those ads? Everybody was getting that free government stimulus money, remember? So nobody wanted to work. They're like, I'm making more money sitting at home and ordering DoorDash all day, right? And so unfortunately now, well, probably fortunately, the money ran out. We all knew it was going to happen. Anybody with a half a brain between their ears would have been able to figure out that was not going to be the forever Publishers Clearinghouse check every week, forever. But I guess most people just simply do not even have a half a brain. Which, the good news again for you, is that since most people are not smart, or they're not, I guess you could say, they're just too lazy to go forward with many of these strategies that I'm going to be teaching you, this means that how much competition is going to be out there for you? None! None! We had a couple of kids. I'm going to call you a kid, Ray, even though you're probably going to be insulted until 10, 15, 20 years goes by. You're going to be wishing people still called you a kid. But in our Investor Take event, Ray and another kid was in there. Eric was his name. And man, these two guys, they're just in it to win it. But you look around the room and you notice nobody else, well, first of all, but barely anybody else was here, period. But certainly I don't usually get people that young. And I've noticed in the generations, obviously the millennials are the lost generation. I know Jack hates it when I tell him that, but I'm sorry, you're lost, dude. Just, it's over. That's it.
Okay, Google Maps.
Yeah, right, you got Google Maps.
Google Maps.
But I noticed the kids that do show up and the kids that do hustle, the way that the old baby boomers used to have that hustle. Like, remember, back in the baby boomer days, everybody had the hustle on, right? And then the Gen Xers, like, okay, well, we lost about half, but half had the hustle on. That's still a lot of competition. And then you get to the millennials, and you're like, okay, you're down to like 2 to 5% that have the hustle on. And I want to say that probably Generation Z, which is my daughter's generation, I believe it starts in 2005, they're actually a unique group of kids. What's unique about these kids is that they're eerily cognizant of everything that's going on with everything. And I'm not talking about politically and all this nonsense that's been going on, which, by the way, if you think any of the stuff that you're seeing on the news is real, think again. It's not. It's a show. It's a show to keep you distracted. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. In fact, many of the large political figures that we see every day, many of them don't even know what's going on behind the scenes. There's people that run this whole world that are meticulously putting things in place. So it's a waste of your time anyway to watch the news. Unless you want to know the weather, in which case, don't you have a weather app or something to do that?
No, yeah.
So that you don't get sucked into the murders and this and that. So these kids, though, it's not really about knowing about the political motivations and all that, which in the end, it really isn't important anyway. But they know stuff about health and the environment and just weird off-the-wall stuff. Like, one day my mom's like, "Mom, you can't throw that plastic bag away." And I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "Because eventually it ends up in the ocean and sea turtles think that they're jellyfish, so they'll try to eat the bag and they'll die." Like, how the hell do you know this? You know? Like, who knows that? Nobody, right? So I learn things, and she tells me the most obscure things, but obviously they make the most sense. I appreciate the fact that our governor, Gavin Newsom, who, by the way, I really don't care for across the board anyway, but he recently abolished the use of using those toxic, what do they call it, the toxic rat poison. He's not allowing people to use that anymore because what happens with the environment? Well, first of all, now having owned a wide variety of different exotic pets over the last couple of years, including guinea pigs and now rabbits. My daughter just got a bearded dragon last week. You know, all these different things, but all these little creatures, I mean, they're part of God, right? That's what I believe. A creature of God, I call them. And I had a girlfriend who I was growing up with when I was 12, my daughter's age. Her name was JoJo. She used to have rats. Of course, she used them to feed her boa constrictor. But we used to play with the rats all the time. And so I wasn't afraid of rats because I thought that they were the cutest things. They're actually pretty freaking smart if you know anything about rats. You know, there's a reason that they say that at the very end of the world there's going to be cockroaches and rats because they're survivors. They know how to survive. Interestingly enough, my daughter was born in the year of the rat, which means durability, which means frugality, not being wasteful, survival, being a survivalist. So when I saw these beautiful little rats, Ron gets mad at me. I had a bird feeder. I still do, but there was rats that were eating the bird seed. And I saw these little tiny little ones running around. He's like, "No, you can't have these rats running around." I'm like, yeah. You don't live here, so don't worry about what's happening at my house, 3,000 miles away from yours, okay? But I've never liked the idea of poison because you know what that rat poison does to them when they eat it? It liquefies the inside of their body. Can you imagine how painful that is? And sometimes other animals get into it. I've heard deer gets into it. We don't have deer by us, by the way. Coyotes get into it. And it's just the most horrific death possible. Imagine swallowing something liquid. Somebody gives you a glass full of something, you thought it was a drink, and it was really, I don't know, Drano or something, and it liquefies the entire inside of your body. Can you imagine how painful that is? But it's not even just the rats that eat it. Then all of a sudden there's an owl that needs something to eat, and so he swoops down on the rat, and the owl eats it. Then the owl dies. And up the chain it goes. And it affects our entire ecosystem, including, at some point, our water supply. So if you think you're doing something to something else, think again, you're actually doing it to yourself as well. So I really do honor and recognize how forward-thinking it was for him to abolish the rat poison. And some people complain, and other people are just like, there's other ways to detour rats from, your house. Like, clean up your backyard, stop leaving all your food laying around, and, stop being freaking lazy. Just be clean and they won't be there, right? And so these kids in this day and age are very cognizant of these things. You want to know why they're going to have to be? Because we kind of left things in a bad position for them. And not knowingly, we didn't purposely go out there to do these things, but that's just how things have happened, right? We didn't know that throwing, Coke cans on the side of the road as we're speeding down the road in the 60s and 70s was a bad thing. Like, yeah, maybe that's not a good idea anymore, right? The rat poison, maybe that's not a good idea anymore. You learn as you go. All the emissions, maybe it's not a good idea anymore. My daughter's like, there's just so much pollution. I'm like, honey, when I first moved to California in 1987, you could not see the buildings from anywhere. It was this gray, heavy hue of a cloud. And says, we don't have that anymore. So even though these improvements seem to be so slow and incremental, they are working. She says, yeah, but I think we need to do more. I says, you're right. But unfortunately, there's only so much we can do. There's only so much recycling we can do. There's only so many buying new light bulbs we can do. And then some of the higher up leaders have to assist with changing the laws. But it's a completely different generation. She's not about making money, though. Did you notice your kids are not about making money? You'll notice. Well, your kids are little. When your kids isn't even talking yet, right? You'll notice these types of things. You'll notice these subtle things. So they have a completely different generation. So they have a different, what we call dharma or purpose in life, which is probably to help save the planet so that you guys have a place to live. My daughter's like, well, aren't you concerned, Mom? I'm like, not really, because I'll be dead, so it doesn't matter to me. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to go out and try to wreck the planet, but at the same time, it's not my battle to fight, which seems really selfish, but it isn't. So with you guys, simply because you're here and you showed up means that you have the hustle you need. So yesterday we were doing a little bit of our Platinum website building, and how many of you found yourself getting frustrated just with some of the little things we had to do? Peter, well, we know Peter. I mean, you were constantly in this downward spiral from the very beginning when you got here. John started off strong, and then his permanent smile rapidly diminished when something happened, and I still to this moment don't know what happened to you. But everybody else, you were able to pretty much follow along, right? Bob's problem is that he could never remember any of his passwords. And if he did, can you imagine how far you get in life? So, but, and then I start to get a little, not disappointed, but frustrated because I'm like, you guys, we didn't even get started yet. We're building just our first funnel, which we did yesterday. I think, did everybody end up with a funnel yesterday? John, whatever happened with you? Peter, what happened with you? Did you ever end up getting it up and running?
No.
Because Tori said that she was going to help out, and whatever happened with that? Okay, all right. Well, we're still working on that. Okay, so we're going to get you up and running. But I start to get frustrated when I see you guys wanting to throw in the towel over a tiny little technical thing. Like Peter, he was starting to get frustrated because he's like, what's this box that's popping up? How dare they try to show me a video to show me how to do this? It's like, well, I'm showing you how to do it, so I'm giving you permission to close the window because I'm actually doing this live, But the tools are there. Like when I first got started with the service, do you think that they had videos that just popped up to show you how to do every single step? No. And these videos aren't long. They're not asking you to just, throw in 60 to 90 minutes to watch like the typical Monica Main seminar. These are like between 2 and 3 minutes, each one. That is how Bev was able to build a multi-million-dollar business. In fact, I want you to do me a favor. In that box right there, there's some scrolls. I'm going to get you guys really excited about some things because it seems like, just give me one. This is just a demonstration. Now you're going to have to guard these with your life because I'm about to tell them what's in here. Yeah, now we have to put them in the balls. And by the way, Bev is over 80 years old. And she's still kicking. And actually, because of the money that she's been able to make, she's been able to fly outside of the country to be able to get some unorthodox treatments on, And I believe it's because of that also with Dr. Barrington, same thing too. Because money makes all the difference in the world, whether you live or die in some cases. And so, she's actually doing pretty good. So, I'm going to tell you what's in the scroll in a second, but that's what Bev had to do. And this was before the days when ClickFunnels offered those little tutorial pop-up boxes with the videos. She went on YouTube all the time. That's all she did. She was addicted to YouTube. She says, I'm going to figure this out through hell and high water. And she did. She spent a lot of time doing it, but her back was up against the wall. She was going through a divorce. She was getting evicted from her apartment. She didn't have a job. So, we talked about this. Damon John's book, The Power of Growth. I hate the title, but the crux of the book basically says that you have great power when your back is up against the wall, because it allows you to think creatively, and it also gives you the gumption and the gall to move forward in ways that you probably wouldn't if you were content. Contentment is the worst possible place you can be. Having that cushy, awesome job is the worst place you can be. I'm thinking if Travis actually liked his job, he might still be there. He had a cushy job, and when he started to become successful in real estate flipping, it might have been a much harder decision if it was you had a bunch of friends there, you liked being there.
Holy.
Right. But he hated his boss, he hated the work, he hated everything, and so it wasn't a hard decision. Being comfortable is the worst place you could be because it allows for your decisions to be very difficult. I know Randy's going through some things at this point. I'm not going to explain what, but there is a beauty in not being comfortable because it makes you make decisions that you otherwise would not. Decisions for your better good. Okay? You don't want things to be comfortable. Not right now. So then you need to start making decisions to change your life. That goes for all of you, no matter what you're going through. So Beth figured it all out because her back was up against the wall. And she was not going to accept failure. Do you think she set up her first money funnel and all of a sudden millions of dollars started pouring in overnight? No. No, she had to tweak certain things. She went on Facebook. She lost a little money there. She did this and that. And she was doing all these different things. And finally, when she decided after much conflict with her and much trying to break past certain obstacles with her, she decided to try direct mail marketing. She started off with postcards, like all the stuff I'm going to be teaching you tomorrow. She finally hit it with the invitation style cards that I teach you guys to do in my apprenticeship group now. We're going to talk a little bit about that tomorrow. And so now, just like me, she's mostly offline because that's where all the money's at. We're going to talk about the psychology of that a little later. So, after me and Bev actually had a little bit of a conflict. So what happened was she was selling a lot of our slice courses, obviously making us a lot of money because we get 50% commission on everything she makes, and she gets the other 50%. And she decided to come up with her own stock trading course, which I'm not mad at her for that. You know, I try to get you guys as quickly as possible on your own business track. I don't want you sucking off of the affiliate tit, if you will, for the rest of your life. You can start like that, but eventually I would like to see you guys branch out and create some of your own products, which we will talk about in the next couple of days. So I wasn't mad at her about that. What I was mad at her about was I have a really killer, kick-ass marketing piece, and she basically lifted a lot of that piece for her own marketing piece. And that's when I got upset with her, and she knew I was upset. So when I talked to her recently, I says, here's a way you can redeem yourself. Here is your road to redemption, which I find myself a lot these days presenting these types of opportunities for people. And so I says, you know, I'm doing an event, and I would really like a gift for the attendees who come out, because during the pandemic, I know a lot of people are making decisions based on fear. So, by the way, I'd like to honor all of you who decided to show up, because there's so many people sitting at home watching this, dialing in their life, dialing it in. Some of them literally dialing it in on the phone to listen to this presentation, and you guys showed up. And it's those who show up that become successful, those that dial it in, usually end up doing nothing with this at all. So just in the mere fact that you guys are here and you showed up, pat yourself on the back for that. I mean, seriously, pat yourself on the back for that. Because, no, I mean, there is greatness in that. That is the first step. So many people talked about it. How many people did we originally have? We had like 100 and something people for this event. Now, mind you, the hotel limited us from, I think, 100 and something to like 60 was our max. And I'm wondering even how we would have gotten 60 people in this room. I don't know. And in their defense also, too, those that are watching, I did tell some people to stay home. There's certain students like Dave Marcus in New York City and people like that I don't want them risking their lives for this. And so they wanted to be here. I just told a lot of them not to come here. So I guess I give them partial credit, right? But you guys showed up. Randy's having a lot of issues now. She comes from California just like me. She's here. Okay? Now her mind is somewhere else. But she is here. She showed up. What does that say about Randy? She's ready for a breakthrough. This is it. This is her breakthrough now. She's ready. So you guys are ready too. So for that, I'm like, for the people that actually honor themselves by showing up and creating a new future, what can you give to me for a gift for them? And she said, Monica, I know you're mad at me. Tori tends to have these conversations a lot with me too that start off the same way. Monica, I know you're mad at me. So I'd like to do something special. I know we talked about this a little while ago and I said no. When you asked me, I'm willing to do it now. I will give you the funnel that started my multi-million-dollar business. And it's in here, the scroll. Now you're probably wondering to yourself, well, how do I get such scroll? And the answer is very simple. It's something you guys can do that everybody else who's listening and watching this webinar right now cannot do. They will not be able to get this scroll. Later on, you'll have the opportunity tomorrow to be able to offer up a testimonial on your experiences here at this event if you'd like, or if you thought it was a beneficial event for you. And once you are done with your testimonial, then the scroll will be ceremoniously passed on to you. So that's how you get the scroll. So that's tomorrow, but her $1 million business clone is in here with all the instructions on how to set it up. And I never thought she was going to offer this. But, manipulation sometimes works. So, that's what I have for you guys, for, again, honoring the process by just being here. That's powerful stuff, isn't it? She's never offered that, by the way. I've asked her and asked her and asked her and asked her and asked her. She said, I'll think about it, which usually means what? In the world of Bev, it means no. Okay? I've had a student of mine, Blake, which, by the way, where is Blake? There you are. I didn't even recognize you. Why didn't I recognize him? Doesn't he look different? Oh, he's wearing pants.
The man of many faces.
Doesn't he look different? I'm like, what the hell? But you had asked about taking over part of her business. She ended up having, I think it was her grandson that ended up taking it over. But it was another one of those, I'll think about it, and then she gets back to me and it's no. So with Bev, it's always, I think, I'll think about it. So getting this is going to be powerful for you guys. Even if you get nothing else out of these 2 days, getting this scroll could change your life. Okay? So I'm going to give this back to you, Eddie, because you have to put this back in the vault, which better be a better setup than just under your chair. No. So I think that's powerful, and I'm just, even again, if you get nothing else out of these 2 days, if you're able to get that, that's going to be powerful. That could change your life. That changed her life. She went, like I said, from scraping by and not knowing where her next meal would come from to really wishing that she started this 20 years ago when she was much healthier. So don't you guys have that benefit, that opportunity to not be 80-something? Well, Bob, sorry.
That's okay.
But he's ridiculously healthy. I mean, I don't even think I've ever met another healthier. Well, his uncle Junior is 87. The guy looks like he's not a day older than like 70. My dad's 71, he looks like he's about 99. Because my dad lived a hard life, a lot of health problems. But you look great. He's always glowing, he has great skin, and he's got a lot of energy. So you could be 40 in spirit, and that would work.
39.
39. Okay, let's stick with 39. Peter, you want to be 39 too? Okay, let's go 39. We're all 39 except the kids, the younger ones, and then you guys could be 19 or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
There you go.
But you can build whatever life you want. You can have anything that you want, but you have to think outside of the box. People that are normal will not do well in this business. People that excelled in school will not probably do well in this business. People with high-grade professional degrees will not do well in this business. People who are not even marginally psychopathic will probably not do well in this business. Did you know that the vast majority of self-made millionaires and billionaires have either some kind of learning disorder or some type of psychological order or ADHD, something? You got to kind of have to be off a little bit to be successful. And if you're not, if you're straight-laced, normal, got perfect grades in college and you're likely not going to make it. Because you're going to think everything logically through. Remember how long it took me to have Paul Sontag? Do you remember my student Paul Sontag? He is an IBM engineer. Was one of those 4.0 college dudes. Looks the whole part and everything, has the glasses. The only thing I think he's missing is the pocket protector, which you imagine he's wearing it because of the way he looks. Looks like your typical IBM engineer. And it took me years to break through that. Why do you think it took so long? He overthought everything. It's like he would analyze, and then he would get to so his thing is real estate, so he'd get down to the real estate deals, like the numbers would be so good, and so what do you think he would say to himself, knowing that the numbers were so good? Can't be that good. I must be missing something. And then all of a sudden, a day later, it goes under contract. And then that kept happening and happening and happening. Finally, he's like, I got to put an offer in on something. And I think last time I checked, he's no longer with IBM anymore. He was able to finally get enough passive income properties. But it took him just 5 years just to put in one offer. That took forever. Guys, we don't have 5 years, okay? We don't have that long, all right? And you have to have a warrior-like focus. So let's get into what money funnel means. I know some of you know, but this is a good refresher course, right? So at the very, very top of your funnel is going to be all your leads. Obviously the top of the funnel, which I call the rim, that term is going to come in handy later. It's called the rim. It's kind of like a basketball hoop rim. That's where all your leads come in at the top. And then as you go down the funnel starts to get skinnier. There will be fewer people coming through or actually making it to this far in the process who will buy your product, whether it's a lower end product or whether it's a higher end product or a combination of both. So you'll notice the funnel starts getting skinnier in the middle because there are fewer people that come in from the top that end up actually buying. And at the very bottom, you'll notice the thinnest part of the funnel, which is the most narrow part at the very bottom. But look at all the money that's coming through. I was talking a little bit ago about how when I do direct mail marketing, I have a 99, sometimes more, 99% failure rate in that business. Why do you think I still do it though? But if 99 out of 100 people throw my mail away, why do I keep doing it? You can get very rich with that 1%. On the slice mailings, the one-steps I do, I get a 1/10 of 1%. A 10th. Do you know what a 1/10 of 1% is?
1 in 10,000.
It's like taking a penny and slicing it up to a 1/10 of 1 penny. It's a 1/10. And I do really well in that mailing because of the price point. It's $12.97. It's just under $1,300. So I can actually send out 1,000 pieces and only get one order. And it's to do well just with the upsells on the back end, with the hot tips that I have, and the seminar that's coming up, and all the other stuff. So I have a 99% plus failure rate. and I do really well. So when you start to look at the very bottom of the funnel and you're thinking, well, Monica, I want to make a lot more than just, tiny bits of money. Well, you got to get and circulate and get through a lot of leads to be able to figure out the needle in a haystack of people that are willing to buy. Travis was talking about this yesterday, about how he has to put in, he figures about, 1 out of every 10 offers or properties that you see turn into a deal for you?
1 out of 13.
1 out of 13, he's got it down to a science. So I shudder, when he told me that, I shudder at all the students that just put themselves out there, Tori Weber, for 3 or 4 deals, but before throwing their hands up because they think it doesn't work. And what's the problem with thinking like that?
Deal short.
You're 10 deals short because you only got through the first 3, and he says, according to his statistics and his track record, he needs 13 to get that 1 deal.
I started off with 1 out of 22, so don't get me wrong.
Yeah, so he started getting better with the sales presentation because it was obviously 1. He started off with 1, getting 1 deal out of 22, and then it went down to 1 in 13 pretty soon. So pretty soon it might be 1 in 10, 1 in 8, as he gets better and better with his communication skills and his sales, whatever you do when you get there. But it's a numbers game, you guys. So if you're just throwing up your hands because you sent out 200 pieces of mail, because really, I have people that do that. Oh, I don't know, I sent out 10 pieces of mail, and what? 10 pieces of mail? You didn't even get started yet. Well, how come all these people? I thought that I was going to get at least half. Half? On what planet do you ever get half of anything? So you have to understand this is a numbers game. Everything in business is a numbers game. I don't care if you're in real estate, it's a numbers game. I don't care if you're in the money funnel business, it's a numbers game. I don't care if you're in the mail order business, it's a numbers game. It's all a numbers game. And obviously the more activity you put out there, the more ends up coming back. Because it is a small piece of the pie. But if you put nothing out there, how much of the pie do you actually get? You can't get anything. You're not playing the game yet. You got to play the game. So, what this business has done for me is a lot. I'm able to, this is actually, I'm going to show you a picture in a second, but it allows me to do exactly what I want to do with my life. It gives me the ultimate freedom. So I went through a lot last year with my staff. I don't know if many of you know that I dealt with embezzlement last September. And I actually threw in the towel. I think the part for me that bothered me the most is that the head kingpin, if you will, who ripped me off, and it was her and 2 other ladies in the office. I had known the kingpin, her name was Holly, many of you met her, for over 10 years. In fact, I want to say 12 years because I was still pregnant with my daughter when I met her. My daughter just turned 12 this year. So for me, it wasn't just an employee who did this and blindsided me in this way. It was, I considered a friend. And so from September, so it was after the event that we had last year in Vegas, after I got back, I felt like I was a deer in the headlights for, I want to say, until January. I just felt stunned, And in February, I'm just like, I don't know that I want to keep carrying on like this. I was very close to shutting things down. And then I'm like, well, no, I don't want to shut things down. I'm just going to have to do better next time. So it took till about February, March when I started to wrap my head around what happened. And then I realized karma will take care of itself. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And I just have to be a little bit more cognizant and attract different people, right? I must have attracted that in my life at some point. What I think happened was the person she was when she first came into my life was a different person than what she kind of morphed into later on after I hired her. I know that sounds weird, but she started hanging around with the wrong people. And it started to change her energy and who she was by hanging out with these derelicts and drug dealers and people of that low energy. So even though she started off with high energy, I mean, many of you have talked to Holly on the phone, she's got like super high energy and bubbly. She started to change a little bit when she started hanging out with these weird people. And so even though I look back and I think, well, what should I have done? Not hired her? And the answer is she was okay in the beginning, she just turned into something else. Now, since I don't have a crystal ball, I was unable to predict that was going to happen. And I think the worst part of myself was that I blamed myself for not seeing it earlier, because I knew something was wrong. You know, you have that sense that something's wrong, but I kept telling myself logically, well, she wouldn't do that to me. I don't have to worry. But I knew something was wrong. And I knew once I sat down and looked at all the numbers and stuff, I knew something bad was going to happen. And so that's when I specifically, purposely waited till after Vegas, because I had to keep my mind on that. So finally I wrapped my head around the fact that I just had to put it out there to attract better people. And I have to put in an infrastructure in place to where I don't have to be at the office as much anymore. And so I hired Shaylin. She's amazing. I know my apprenticeship group got students better. She's great, isn't she? She's really sweet, very angelic in personality. I don't know if you've ever talked to her on the phone. Very sensitive, so don't yell at her on the phone, otherwise she'll cry. But she's she's 22. I wasn't going to hire her. No offense to the youngin', but I wasn't going to hire her because most millennials are lazy. But she told me one thing that sold me, and I hired her right away after she told me this. She says, I have an 18-month-old daughter. And I knew when you have a daughter or any child, your focus completely changes. Like, you're not the party girl anymore, you're just your mom now, you know? So I hired her because of that. She is fantastic. Now, aside from the fact that I had to show her where a stamp goes on an envelope and just some of the basics of that stuff, and I was holding a cassette tape a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, do you know what this is? Aside from little things like that, she seems to be doing okay. She'll figure it out. She's smart. She'll figure it out. So now that I have her, I now have her mom there. Her mom's just as smart. And her mom does all the follow-ups for me, which we're going to be talking about tomorrow. She does all of the follow-up for me. I have someone full-time doing this. So when you get your business straight, you hire people to do these things. You hire people to stuff envelopes. You hire people to answer the phone. You hire people to do mailings for you. You hire people to follow up for you. You hire people to do all the shipping for you. I'm barely in the office. I hate going there. I absolutely hate it. I hate my office space. I think it's dreary and depressing, and I just don't like being there at all. Mostly it's because I know I walk in and here's a pile of government California forms you got to sign and send back, and all this other stuff I don't want to deal with. So I just don't like wasting my time, because where am I most strongly suited? I'm the rainmaker. I build the funnels that make money. I build the marketing campaigns that make money. I could sit there all day long and design invitation cards. If that was my only job in life, I would be happy. I like doing that kind of stuff. So what do you do as an entrepreneur? You try to be the jack of all trades and wear all these hats. In the beginning you might for a short time, but eventually please note that the bigger you become, the stronger you become, because now you can focus on the things that make the company money, and everybody else can do all the admin crap that's boring and sucks, right? So I'm very grateful that I finally wrapped my head around that whole psychological barrier that was created last year, and finally understood what I needed to do to get things back on track. I had a vision, which was put the right people in place and go do the things that you're most strongly suited for, which is the marketing part. And you will have that option as time goes on too. I want to see all of you build a multi-million-dollar business. That's what Bev ended up doing. She has employees. So in the beginning, you're going to have to do all the things. But you can then have the lifestyle you want eventually. Some of the stuff I teach you is going to start from easy and get progressively more difficult as time goes on. But it's those that do the difficult things that are the ones that get the prize. The ones that sit around because they think everything's an easy button that they can buy from Staples, then they're not going to be successful. That's just the bottom line. Now, is all of this stuff hard in comparison to the stuff I talked about earlier with working on the docks at 4 o'clock in the morning for 16 hours a day for pennies? Is it harder than that?
No.
Because that's what our ancestors had to go through. They thought that they probably thought that was normal. And here we are just wusses. We're wusses. And yet, yeah, how do we go from, well, Fred Flintstone, he worked at the rock pit, and then you go to the, George Jetson, and everything's, you have a meal, and when you press a button, it's just served to you on some robot. What's her name, Rosie or something? And the disparity in between. So if you're willing to work the business, I can show you how to do it. I can show you how to be successful, if you want to be. And you can travel the world just like me and Bree do when, we're not out of pandemic. We're supposed to go to France this year. We had to postpone it until next year. I'm not even sure if we're going to be able to go next year either. But it's not even about going, is it? It's about the ability to be able to go. Right? It's the ability, like he was talking about yesterday, or the other day, it's the $60,000 movie theater he's building because of his business. It's about the ability to be able to do these things versus counting pennies and signing up for food stamps and all that other stuff that I don't want to see any of you have to ever do. So, I could definitely have what I want. Somebody had asked me the other day, how come I didn't buy another car this year? You get bored of that stuff. Like he wants a, what is it, an S63 or something? Mercedes-Benz. And I'm like, go get it. Like, why don't you have it yet? All the shit I've been teaching you all these freaking years, why don't you have it yet? It's a matter of focus. We're gonna be ratcheting up that focus and knowing that you can have it. If I can do this, I know absolutely any one of you can do this. All right? And I'm going to show you this business and how this works. So we're going to go ahead and take a 15-minute break. 15-minute break. We'll be back here in 15. Are you going to switch this out? Yeah?
Pardon?
Take a seat. Relax. Hey, you're passing around gifts then? All right, is everybody ready? Is everyone ready? I'm going to put Ron on the job. Sit down. Yeah, you need to double check though.
We're good outside.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so usually you guys understand that we do our little raffles, right? But because of everything that's going on right now, and because I want to continue on our track here, we just passed around some gifts. Hope you don't mind that we decided to do that.
I'm a winner.
You're a winner. Everybody in this room is a winner, okay? And I think we even have some more gifts to pass around too as we go along. Right, Tori, we have more stuff, yes. Okay, so let us begin. All right, so what I'm going to teach you is to stick with something called information publishing, because information publishing is the most profitable money funnel business out there. Does anybody know what information publishing is? What does that refer to?
selling information.
Selling information. How many of you read my brand new Buy It or Beat It book? You guys all have some in your folder. By the way, I want you guys to write this down because at the end of my event, you don't have to take pictures of my slides because I will give you all of my PowerPoint slides and accompanying materials. And also, too, Tori, remind me to put the Buy It or Beat It download up there for the people that are watching on the webinar. But I need you to write down monicameen.com/ICF20. So monicameen.com/ICF20. ICF stands for Internet Cash Flow. So monicameen.com/ICF20. You will find all of the PowerPoint presentations that I do there in a PDF format. At the conclusion of this event, I will also upload additional materials as I talk about them. And so all of you here actually have the physical Buy It or Beat It report. Those that are watching on the webinar will not have access to the physical report. I love the physical report. Isn't the cover great? So on the online download version, you guys don't get a cover. But the cover is awesome because it's a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. And the report, Buy It or Beat It in a nutshell, talks about not only information publishing and how powerful it is because you can charge any amount of money, but it also talks about the change in our marketing strategy and what we have to do to get not just customers, but highly qualified customers. Don't you agree that there's a difference between just simply customers versus highly qualified customers? Yes, there is. So in order for you to be able to make the largest dollar amounts possible per transaction, you do have to sell information publishing products. And so in that report, I talk about how powerful information is. So do you think I could potentially sell a piece of paper for $25,000?
Sure.
Yes. I talk about it in the Buy It or Read It course, or report. But if I were trying to sell a $25,000 bottle of diet pills, would I be able to pull that up? No. Maybe a $25,000 anti-aging serum? No. Maybe. Dad better have magic dust gleaming and glittering and turning somebody from a 50-year-old to a 25-year-old when they put it on their face. And if at such a time somebody can invent that, I don't even think then they would be able to command $25,000 a bottle. So that's why we're in the information publishing business, because the $25,000 piece of paper I could potentially sell maybe has next week's winning lottery numbers on it. And I could actually, if I was a world-renowned psychic, I talk about this as an example in the Buy It or Read It report, where I am world-renowned, I'm actually well-known to be a psychic to predict every single weekly Mega Millions lottery since 2005, or whatever the example was I used in the book. I could command $25,000 for a single piece of paper, and not even a full 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper either. How big would the paper have to be? How big do I need to write 6 numbers on it? I could potentially, if I wrote small enough, write it on a piece of paper the size of a fortune cookie fortune. Right?
Right.
Technically, yes. One piece of paper for $25,000, maybe even more. I could potentially charge $100,000. How much is the winning lottery number for next week's lottery worth to you? That is information publishing. Because people are not buying the piece of paper, are they? What are they buying? They are buying what's on the paper. They are buying the transformation that they believe is going to happen by them reading and implementing what's on the paper. It's not even about the paper. And the same thing goes for all other information publishing products, where you are selling information of some kind to teach people how to do something. Travis is getting into the real estate guru business. I don't even think he could have connected with anybody more perfect than myself, especially exiting that business. And all the things I've learned and wish I knew, somebody could have taught me from the very beginning, including everything I talk about in that Buy It or Read It report, by the way. All of that stuff, nobody taught me any of that. And some of that stuff actually came through the changes in marketing, the psyche of your buyer and how things have changed. How to get higher qualified people versus a bunch of tire kickers. When I first got started off in the real estate guru business, I hate that for a guru, you know that, right? But when I first got started in that business, I took any and everybody that came through my funnel. I was offering free download reports. Does anybody read free PDF download reports anymore? No? What was the last time any of you, well, John, he's like the only one in the room. He reads everybody's boring reports. You actually read those reports?
Download them so I can throw my spare time, so.
I love John. He always has a smile on his face. He's like the sweetest guy. But does anybody else other than John in the room really? So if you actually put your, first of all, does anybody actually put their name and email address in for a download report anymore? Like, is that a thing? Other than John, John's not allowed to answer anymore. No. And then what if you did, like, what if something was so awesome, somebody's like, yeah, and I'm going to send you a PDF of my, unsecured money source for real estate deals. What are the chances that the PDF would be emailed to you and you still wouldn't open it?
100%.
It's getting pretty close to 100%. It might be 50%, it might be 75%. But the bottom line is, the problem with people that are responding to online things is that they're flighty. And I don't mean you're a flighty individual, I mean that the whole platform supports mental flightiness, right? So even though you might be the most focused, Zen, Buddha individual on the entire planet, there's something about the connection, the brain-body connection between you and your smart devices that turn you into a flighty individual. Because there's something in the mechanics of the smart devices that turn you into something that you're not anymore. It makes you confused, it makes you unfocused, it makes you forget things. It's almost as if you were under some kind of weird spell, right? Can you stop making so much damn noise over there? Always a troublemaker. So, it turns you into the most focused individual, to almost somebody putting a magic potion and spell over you the very moment you look at your iPhone. So the problem with this now is, think about if you were on Facebook, from being your Zen-focused individual 2 seconds ago to now picking up your phone and now being under a spell, in a dreamlike spell trance. And you're on Facebook and you click on something that seems marginally interesting, and you opt in to get somebody's free report, and you put your name and email address in the system, and they email you the report. Do you even remember what the hell you ordered or wanted or requested? And so by the time they send you the email, first of all, you're thinking, who the hell is Jack James or whatever this guy's name is? You didn't make the association between the Facebook ad and now this guy who you're getting an email from, Jack James. You don't remember, and even if you did, even if he had that on his posting, you probably still wouldn't make the connection. Like, who the hell is this? And so the likelihood of you even opening the email with the PDF in it is pretty close to zero. That's even if you get the PDF to begin with, because what happens with spam blockers these days? They're more sophisticated, right? Long gone are the days where you could just basically send anything from a Hotmail account and it would get someplace. These spam blockers have gotten so sophisticated to where they actually connect with IP addresses to known companies that send out millions of pieces of spam emails a day. And they will automatically spam out anything that's a freebie email address, and they'll spam out anything that has an attachment to it, or a link that says a certain thing or sequence in there. That's why affiliate links in emails usually never work either. They're very sophisticated now. And so if you even got the email with the PDF that you may or may not be still waiting for, the likelihood that you're even going to know who Jack James is or whoever the guy was that was supposedly offering this free thing, it's next to nil that you're going to open it. And then, with all the phishing scams or all the virus scams, you're looking at this going, okay, well, this seems like it might have been something I might have requested. This Jack James guy, I don't really recognize the name, but I just opened up the email and he's got an attachment on there. What do we want to do with attachments? Do we want to just simply download anything we get from anybody? I mean, all of a sudden I'm thinking, okay, well, let's see, Jack James, yeah, it's unsecured money. I think I might have requested something. I don't know. But now there's an attachment and there's too much virus risk there. So I'm just not going to open this at all. How many of you actually got phishing or other types of virus emails that actually said, here, sign this DocuSign thing, click on this link, or these weird things, and you're like, I didn't ask for that. The latest scam that I get a lot nowadays is your PayPal account's been either compromised or something, or we're about to close it, or it's closing, or it's closed, and it goes to an email address that's not even connected to any of my PayPal accounts anyway. So I immediately know that it's a fraud, but I also often wonder how many people actually fall for that, because it just so happens to go to their email address that is connected to their PayPal account. And this is how you can know it's a fraud. You open up the email, and usually in the header you'll actually see where the email comes from. When you click on it, it'll be some obscure, weird email address that PayPal would never even have. So people are getting taken advantage of left and right by way of email, and that's why it doesn't seem to work anymore. And so for you to be in the information publishing products business is very profitable, but you have to understand there's different rules now to be able to get lots of customers and lots of money coming in. So we're going to talk about those different rules as we go along. But I'm here to tell you that being in both sides of the business, being in the information publishing side and the health supplement consumable side, which included health supplements and skincare products, I can tell you hands down the information publishing product side is the best because you can command the highest dollar amount for your products. So if you're smart, this is the business you're going to be in. You're going to be selling information publishing products. We are not now going to be going after consumables anymore. If you really want to do that business, that's great, but it's highly competitive, and I strongly suggest that you think otherwise. So what this allows you to do is have what we call a high-ticket, high-end funnel business, which we're going to be talking about as we go along here. And it does take a little bit more work because you want to get more highly qualified leads coming into your funnel. But is it worth the work if each sale could potentially get you anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000 each? Yeah, you're not going to get an average of 1,000 or 5,000 each selling diet pills or skincare or any of that stuff. When I watch shows like Shark Tank, which I watch a lot, I watch reruns, I'll watch the same ones over and over again, because you start to understand different business models that just do not work. Like you see people come into the tank and they tell you what their sales are, and like this one lady, she was selling all natural peanut butter or something, and I'm just like, well, that sounds great, but how many jars of peanut butter do you have to sell to make millions of dollars a year? And then it's especially worse if you're on the retail to wholesale side, because you're not getting full retail of every jar of peanut butter you sell. So, okay, let's talk about the peanut butter. I don't care how natural it is. It doesn't have a magic formula in it. It's not going to make you lose weight or anything special. So what is an average all-natural jar of peanut butter worth to you? If you go to Whole Foods, what are you going to find? Like, not a rinky-dinky size and not, the Mondo size, but like a regular $5. So that means that when you go into Whole Foods or a store, it's about $5. It's probably Whole Foods, it's probably more, like $7, but let's just go with $5, okay? So then, when the store buys it from the wholesaler, how much did they buy that jar of peanut butter from the wholesaler or from the manufacturer? Maybe about $2.50. Ron knows all of the numbers about this, but it'd be about $2.50, right, Ron? Where if it's retail,
The wholesaler will buy from the wholesaler at $2.50. The
$2.50.
wholesaler will buy from the.
Well, I'm working my way down, Ron, one step at a time. Okay, so $2.50 is what the store got it from, the wholesaler or the manufacturer. So the wholesaler and manufacturer then had to make that product for how much money to be able to make a decent profit. So maybe now you can answer that question, Ron. So if they have to sell it to the wholesaler for $2.50, what do they have to make it for to make a decent profit?
Well, they're selling to the wholesaler for around $2. Because the wholesaler can sell to the retailer for $2.50. So they're going to have to make it for a minimum around to be right about 80 cents.
All right, so they should be between 80 cents. It might be a little bit more just because it's a higher end, more natural product, so it might be $1. We don't know. But you can clearly see, though, the difference between $1 and having to sell it to a wholesaler for $2. What is that? It's $1 a unit. $1.20 max. It would take you freaking forever to make any money, right? So I remember this lady on Shark Tank, and she was talking about how many units she moved. And I'm like, well, that seems pretty good. And then at the very end of it, all she made was like something between $7,000 and $8,000, like her first year in business. And I'm just like, all that work for that?
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't even live on a salary of that a month. Gross. And that's what she made. So who knows what her take home was? Probably zero, And when I look at these business models, I'm like, how is it that anybody even has the energy after they do their numbers on their pad of paper the first time they're even starting to think about it? That's the problem. Most people don't think this through. I talked about it in my book, The Lost Secret, where I talk about how many people go out there and they want to open up an ice cream store or a salon store or some other weird, stupid store where they got to move a lot of units to make any money. Now, it's one thing if you're In-N-Out, by me, it's In-N-Out Burger. You would know In-N-Out Burger. My California people know In-N-Out Burger, but there's always a line around the block. Doesn't matter if you're there at 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, midnight. It's constantly busy. How many of you know In-N-Out Burger? Yeah. Of course, Ron does, because he basically lives at the place when he goes to California. But they have the simplest menu. It was almost like, they remind me of the McDonald's ripoff that stayed the original McDonald's in the 60s. There's like 3 menu items. There's like hamburger, I think fries, and a shake. There is nothing else on that menu, but then they have the secret menu that everybody knows about. So you walk in there and you say, okay, I want a, what is it, an animal style something or another, I want a this or that, but none of that's on the menu. 4x4, all these different things you could order, but there's only actually literally 3 things on their menu when you go up to the window. Simplicity. I don't know how much their burgers are, but they can't be that much, but it's a volume business. That's how their business is set up. That's fine for them. But unless you are some variance of that type of business, you're never going to be able to make any kind of consumer good business work in that way. So just know the money's in information. Now what's information? Doesn't software kind of go along the lines of information? Apps, information. Even games, I think, that's kind of like information because it's not a physical thing. So it falls under that category. So all those things are considered information. And so this is why we want to be in this model, because we can move a lot fewer units for a lot more money. Imagine how many jars of peanut butter we'd have to sell, like 1,000 just to get maybe one of the regular orders that we get for our information publishing business. What would you rather do, ship 1,000 jars of peanut butter or send 1 slice course in the mail? I'm sending 1 slice course. I'm not trying to ship 1,000 jars of anything to anybody, anywhere, ever. It's one of the reasons why I don't like the book business per se, but there's a critical component to why the book business is necessary if you're going to start escalating up the ladder when it comes to the information publishing business. Because what is a book? Information. It's information, but it's a very low purchase price item. So why is it still a critical component, especially if you're like Travis, where you're building your own real estate guru empire? Why is a book a necessary component to that? Credibility, that's one thing, John, yes. What?
Or exposure.
Kind of exposure. But so when people start Googling you, what do you think the first thing is going to start coming up? Your book on Amazon. That immediately shows that, Travis is a credible guy, not some fly-by-night, right? But it allows people to put in a very small, minuscule investment to check you out. Plus, books have a very heavy perceived value for the reasons we described. Credibility, obviously, but also, this is a real book. The dude has a real book. I don't know if you can grab one of his books so that I can show you his book. Somebody's got a book. I think it's back there. I want to show you guys his book. So Travis is part of my apprenticeship group, and take your time,
I tripped down the list.
Thank you. So. This is Travis's book. It's called 7-Figure Flipping, and those of you in webinar land, you can actually go to his funnel to get his book, 7figureflippingbook.com, 7figureflippingbook.com. And so he wrote the book. He is probably the best student I've ever had in my apprenticeship group ever. Don't be insulted. Because he follows instructions. Because setting up this information publishing empire for him is worth following suit with everything I tell him to do. He does everything so this was my test for him. I don't know if you remember how this whole thing played out, Travis, but he wanted to get involved in exactly what I've been doing over the years and that I'm letting go of, which is the real estate investing training. I said, you need a book. And I could hear him on kind of a book, like, oh, I gotta write a book. Like, yeah, you gotta write a book, and on top of that, if you're truly serious about this, I'm going to give you 4 weeks to write the book. Like, it doesn't have to be that long. Just like 80 or so pages. But I gave him a deadline. What did I give you, like July 15th or something?
5 p.m.
Yeah, at 5 p.m.
Pacific time.
Pacific time. And I even said that'll give you a little bit of extra time because, I think you're Central Time or something. But I wanted to see how serious he was. I honestly did not think he was going to make the deadline. I didn't even think he was going to read the book at all. Usually most of my students that come in, they come in with all gung-ho and then they make 101 excuses till Sunday about why they couldn't do anything. Tori Weber. And then they end up falling off the cliff. But at least they don't blame me because I gave them the assignment. They just didn't do it, and they knew damn well that they didn't do it. So I'm off the hook, right? I don't just give people assignments, by the way, just because I think it's just an empty,
I'm kind of that one.
And listen. Do you really?
Yeah, it's like,
Oh, okay. So, but let's talk about all the stuff I end up doing for you. He didn't tell you about the part how I built out 3 fully fleshed out funnels for his real estate empire, including. And then also too, I'm working on now a webinar funnel for him, just because I'm so excited about the progress he wants to make based on him writing this book. But it says, for you to become a real estate guru with credibility, you have to do a book. And the next thing I'm going to be working with you, by the way, during our meeting coming up, because we have a 2-day apprenticeship meeting after this is over, we're going to be talking about putting this on Amazon. And I'm going to show you how to advertise as a sponsored listing on Amazon as well. But he did all of the writing. I just had to typeset it all nice and pretty for him and put call to action so that people can actually call him directly if they want to work with him one-on-one. And I also designed the cover and gave him an ISBN because I actually buy these in bulk for my books. So it's a very, very good book. Just because it talks about all of his personalized experiences in the trenches as a real estate flipper who makes a lot of money in the business. So if you're coming in and you want to become a successful real estate flipper like Travis is, wouldn't you want to maybe put in a minimal investment just to check the dude out? So what happens then if you come into his funnel and he doesn't have something like this, and he tries to take you from a $0 to a $10,000 sale? I mean, I know a lot of people that actually do that. I don't know how they pull it off successfully, but if I don't know you from Adam, there's no way I'm whipping out my credit card to pay $10,000 for something. So this is the next lesson in information publishing, is what we call ascension. Ascension, which means you start them off with a smaller dollar amount item and you ascend them up a ladder with higher and higher priced products. So it's basically just, you can even do little steps if you want, but you basically ascend people up the ladder. Usually they start off with the book. Now, is this a PDF download? Does it look like a PDF download to you? We are going back to old school, people. Old school is back. So you can whip out that white tie or the skinny tie or the bell bottoms. Old school is back. We know you have a lot of that in your
Thanks.
Because old school is back. How responsive are you to receiving something physically in the mail? Yes, this will take more work. I even made it even more complicated for Travis like 2 days before I got here. I'm like, oh, and by the way, in addition to you sending out invitation mailers, you're also going to be putting these tithe envelopes, these remittance envelopes, inside your mailers. See you in a couple days. Make sure you order these before you leave. And I know he probably already, if you didn't order them, it would be very disappointed. Did you order them?
They're
Yeah.
I did the online where you said you got to contact the directors on communication.
Oh, okay.
They're not, unfortunately, I don't think they're truly on order. I can wait and enter that, but that's on my today follow-up because it's on my.
I'm hearing a lot of excuses.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You just lost a lot of cool points, Travis.
Right, but
Yes, I know.
why do you think I'm adding, and by the way, I have a lot of my Nixies. I don't know, Tori, what you ended up doing with my Nixies. I don't need them yet, but tomorrow I'm going to share with you. This is a benefit when you guys actually physically show up. Not only do you have the opportunity to get Bev's multi-million-dollar funnel, which is not going to be available under any circumstances to the people that are watching this, but you'll also be able to actually get my physical mailers. They're called Nixies. And that means that if the person doesn't live there anymore, they passed away, whatever, that it comes back to you. And I want to pass around those tomorrow when we talk about that part of the presentation. How powerful is it to actually get physical access of a multi-million-dollar campaign? Don't you think that's like worth the trip out here? I certainly do. Just even getting Fast Scroll and walking away with one of those mailing pieces that you could potentially emulate for your own campaigns. Even if you heard nothing else that I talked about, that in and of itself would be worthwhile on your trip. I'm just doing this again only for those who decided to make the trip out here, because you guys deserve all the kudos in the world for making the trip. And you get rewarded for that in my world. Because in this day and age where people are just not showing up anymore, you have to give yourself kudos for that. So this is what this is. So we're sending people with information. Now, does that mean you have to go out and write a book? Not right now. Not right now, because I'm going to show you guys how to get on what we call the affiliate track to get started, but eventually you might want to write a book. Or you might want to use a person who can write it for you. Like there's people on Fiverr.com, there's people on Elance.com, there's people on Guru.com who can write short books for you. Yes, Travis?
Just wanted to add in, your reply, which I thought was also motivation. When you gave me an assignment as a quote, was saying, I'll try and write a quote. Do you remember the response?
Yeah, so this is what he says. I says, you need to write the book. He's like, I'll try. I says, no, there's no try. You either do or you don't do. Don't you agree? You either do or you don't do.
And I said, I will.
That's right. That's right. And then I was just shocked that I did receive it. It was right after I got back from, I think, somewhere. Or right, I think I was about to go out of town someplace.
Yeah.
And because I thought, no, there's no way that this dude's going to look at the same book. And I'm like, now I got to actually now read the book. I'm like, damn it. I didn't think he was going to. I'm used to people not following through. And you're going to find this in the business of being a real estate guru. Most people not follow through with anything. Now, are you the failure in this? No, for many years I actually understand human psychology and understand that I'm not the failure. So somebody like Dave Marcus in New York City is going to hate me for doing this, because he's probably listening right now. People like that who buy my stuff and never take it out of the shrink wrap. Is that my fault?
No.
No. And it wasn't until I, as a ravaged consumer myself, started buying certain books and different things that I just never had time to read. So I'm like, oh, this is what it's about. So you buy something with the intent on reading it, you get busy, you misplace the book, whatever. It's certainly not the author's fault that I decided to shelve the book or put the book away or lose the book or whatever happened. It's not his or her fault. It's my fault for not making it a priority. So that's when I let myself finally off the hook after, I don't know, I want to say I was in the business of teaching real estate for at least a dozen years and taking such a hard responsibility for people not following through. And then I realized later, well, we all just get busy. And you decide whether this is a priority or not. So you need to understand that when people don't follow through with your stuff, it's not your fault. Right? So, to be able to be successful with this information publishing business, if you want to start off as an affiliate, you can. You're still going to have to pick a wheelhouse, which is something we're going to talk about as we go along through today, and we're going to actually select a wheelhouse. Many of you have actually gone through my 100K Mastery Mentorship group, so you've already done the wheelhouse thing. My apprenticeship group students have all picked out their wheelhouses, so if you guys don't know or are not familiar with a wheelhouse and how that works, we will definitely go through that. But we're going to have to pick what we call a wheelhouse, which I'll describe as we go along. It's basically choosing a certain type of product line in the information publishing business. It's a product line, essentially. Because obviously, with Travis, for example, he's going to start collecting people who are interested in flipping real estate, right? So all of a sudden, when he starts sending out email blasts, he's not going to want to start promoting, mail enhancement, consumable products.
That's an interesting
Well,
conversation.
he might one day. However, I would strongly suggest he doesn't do that,
You
right?
may be interested in that.
Gotta go with the mosquito one.
So his wheelhouse obviously would be for real estate investors, right? And not just any real estate investors, people that are interested in what kind of real estate investing? Flipping! So even if Travis and I decided to, I was almost going to call you Trevor there too. Even if Travis and I decided to stay in the same business, even if I said, I changed my mind, I want to continue to do real estate training, do you think it would even bother me or should even bother him that we're in this kind of the same business? Yes or no? No. He's doing the flipping stuff, single family home flipping, and I do all of what? Apartment building, buy and hold assets. I don't have anything to do really much with flipping. I do have a flipping course. I started off as a flipper like many other real estate investors do. And one day, Travis is going to be a buy and hold apartment building guy. I'm still working on him with that. And then maybe one day he'll teach his students to do that. But so would it be a natural progression then if he has, say, 10,000 hardcore students that are all flippers and all of a sudden one day in 2 years, he says, well, guess what? I believe you should start utilizing your proceeds and start putting them into buy and hold assets. Do you think his people are going to drop off or say, what the hell is this? This is completely unrelated. Or they're going to say, okay, this is a natural progression to my career as a real estate investor. This makes sense, right? So don't you think that would be an additional information publishing product that he can come up with, or probably even license mine if he wanted to, if he didn't want to write it? Because I know how ass-busting this book was for you. Yes. But all of a sudden, if he's trying to pawn off some kind of stock trading course to these people, no. What's wrong with that scenario? Totally different. So it irritates me when my students come in here without any kind of logical thought process to this whole thing, and they're like, well, why can't I do all these wheelhouses? Why can't I do all of these things? Why can't I sell all of these things? What is the problem with that? You're spread too thin, you have no focus, you end up getting nothing. You have 0% success rate in your future if you do not hyper-focus. And I always have students that say, how many funnels should I start off with? How many funnels should you start off with? One! Let's get the one funnel, John, up and running, okay? Just one funnel, that's all we need. The funnel that you guys are going to end up getting tomorrow from Bev is a multi-million-dollar funnel. The one funnel that made her the vast majority of her money when she first got started. One funnel. Not 16 funnels, not 10 funnels, not 5 funnels, one funnel. Now the thing about Bev that slowed her down though is that she started off in the consumables. She started off with skincare stuff. And then she decided to completely scrap it. She was doing well, but she felt, again, like with the peanut butter demonstration that I told you guys about, that there was just a lot of moving, a lot of units to be able to get to where she wanted to be. So she decided to continue working that angle until she was able to build up the stock trading side. And then when that took over, she got rid of all of the consumables. Because she wasn't just doing skincare. She was also doing consumable skincare. I don't know if you've heard of those, the skincare that you can actually, you take like a vitamin or a pill and it helps with your skin. What's that? I have no idea what the name of it was. But it wasn't just a topical, it wasn't just something you rub on your face. She was working on that too. And she says, there's just a lot of requiring shipping and moving a lot of units to be able to sell 10,000 worth every month and 20,000 worth every month. And it was just getting to be hideous. She went from doing all this out of her garage to having to get a warehouse. She says, we're going in the wrong direction here. I want financial freedom. I don't want to be a slave to this business. So I says, okay, you need to be in the information publishing business then. There's no other way around this. You need to sell information. She says, what can I sell? I'm like, what kind of wheelhouse do you have an interest in? She says, I really like stock trading. I said, okay, let's set that up then. So she essentially started over from scratch. So it's best, obviously, based on that story, for you to maybe pick the right one from the beginning, so you don't have to stop a business that you don't feel is giving you the proceeds that you think you should get to now switching to a different one. So instead of having you guys guess by giving you multiple options, I'm only giving you this one option, that's it. You're going to be in the information publishing business, and likely you will be starting out as an affiliate. Because you can make the largest amount of money with being an affiliate without having your own product line, and then eventually, if you want to become a big baller one day, then you have your own product. Develop your own product some way. If you don't know how to write, that's great. There's people that can write stuff for you. You just need to know how to tie everything together in what we call a system or a course. Is that difficult to do? No. What's a system? What's a course? What's a home study course like? Is it just a book? Is this a home study course? No?
CD, workbooks,
Yeah, workbooks, CD, resource directory, audio seminar series, that kind of stuff. All of you have the capability of tying all these things together. Yes, there's multiple components. No, it's not hard. Okay, right before I left, Shaylin, of course, I'm like, are you sure I don't need to order anything? Are you sure? No, you're good, you're good. I'm like, do not bug me when no, I'm good. The very second I get off the plane, I'm getting an email. Yeah, so we're running out of apartment bridges courses. Like, you didn't know this on Monday, So I totally forgot about it, by the way. And so yesterday, I'm just like putting my order in. I'm like, there's 5 books to this damn thing. It's the biggest course I have. One's, I don't know if it's a workbook, one's definitely a resource directory, then I have the coil-bound manual, I have an action plan, I have there's 5. So as I'm putting the order in, I'm like, 5 books, that's just a lot. But yet, what happens when the customer receives that in the mail? What happens to the perceived value? It's pretty high, right? Because that's not all they're getting. I was just talking about the stuff I had to order from the printer. What else is in the course? There's a CD-ROM with forms on it. There's an audio seminar. There's DVDs for videos that they can watch and video training. That is a home study course. The more stuff you have packed in there, the higher perceived value. The higher perceived value, how much more can you charge? More, right? So now we're not in Kansas anymore. We're not just selling a $10 book. We are now selling a course that's anywhere from several hundred to even thousands of dollars because of all the stuff you pack in. And again, I had to go back to old school, not just for one particular reason. The reason nowadays would be that people just don't open PDF files. I know I don't anymore. My eyes just hurt when I'm trying to read something on the computer screen. So even if there is a PDF I download, I usually print it out. But it's because there was a lot of copyright fraud. Like I have a copyright on all of my products that I write. I send it to the Library of Congress, I upload it into their system, I pay their fee, and then I have my stuff copyrighted. But when people have links to stuff, they start sending links to friends and they don't pay for your stuff anymore. It's almost like what Napster did to music, right? Everybody started downloading everybody's stuff for free, and people that were making the music weren't making any money. And so I had that problem. I even had some asshole who decided to take my stuff, and he took one of my links, he actually physically printed out everything, and then started selling it on eBay. And I actually had to have him shut down because of that. I'm like, you're not going to sell my stuff. He's like, well, my son is selling it. That's between me and my son or something. Like, no, it's between me and now the U.S. government because you're in violation of copyright law, which is actually illegal. So you can think it's between you and your son all you want. You and your son have nothing to do with how you just ripped me off and violated my trademark or my copyright. So I started to notice a lot of that with the free downloads and with the paid downloads as well. It's just that there was a lot of fraud. So when you send out a book to somebody, what are the chances that they're going to scan in every page and then try to sell it on eBay, on a CD-ROM, or no, they're not doing all that. Because people are lazy. And you can use that to your advantage, right? Now, finally, the people are lazy. Yeah, that's a great thing now. But also, too, you as a consumer, do you just want to pay $500 or $600 or $700 for a home study course, and then now you got to do all this work to download everything, and then if you don't want to read on the computer because you know that your eyes are failing, by the second when you do that, then you now have to print out 300 or 400 pages of a manual? And then you got to bind it if you want it to be in a bound form instead of just loose pages flying around everywhere? Do you want to do that? No. So do you appreciate the fact that you're going to be physically getting something? Yeah, because you want to highlight stuff and make notes in the corner and tab pages and all that stuff. If you're truly a studious individual who's serious about your success in whatever information you're buying, you're going to do it that way. You're going to want the physical stuff. I don't think the physical stuff ever went out of style as far as I'm concerned. You should see my library at my house. And that's only a small fraction of what it used to be, and I even have 2 libraries at my office. Mini libraries, but they're still libraries. I love physical books. I hate Kindle books. I hate reading on the Kindle. I hate not having a physical book. I just don't like the Kindle, but I still have a Kindle. Why? Why do you think I have a Kindle? I can't bring 20 books on an airplane, and I don't know what I'm going to want to read. But when I'm at home, unless it's the only option is that I got to get it as a Kindle, like this one book that I'm reading now, they only offered it as a Kindle. So I'm like, I had to get it as a Kindle, and trust me, I'm hating every physical minute, and I'm reading the book even slower because I can't remember the things that I read on a Kindle, because your brain, remember, you're under a spell when there's any kind of technology involved, including something as simple as a Kindle. And they have done studies that say that when you read stuff off of a computer, tablet, or a Kindle, you don't retain as much of the information as you do when it's a physical piece of paper or a book. That is a study that's been documented. You can search it up, Jack, because I know you probably don't believe me, but it's true. He knows facts about different things that you would not believe. He can actually, this kid right here, 20 years old, he can give every single one of you in this room a run for your money on any single topic ever.
Not business.
Not business. I have you beat on that. I even have you beat on some of the religious stuff too. We were talking about it last night. But he has me beat on everything else. Anything political, anything that's happening right now, anything that's going on in the news, anything that's going on in Russia, or anything, he has me beat. And I can, if you ever want to see if you could debate him, good luck. You'll have an opportunity tonight. By the way, all of you will be having dinner with me tonight. But for the lunch, I just want to make this clear before we go. I have a apprenticeship group meeting for lunch, so it's only apprenticeship group students that will be meeting with me for lunch. But the rest of you will be with me for dinner as well. And that's when we all have so much fun together. And again, that's another reason that we all want to come out, is because in addition to you really showing up, but you meet people in this room, some of which become your lifelong friends. I know Travis/Trevor, I consider him a lifelong friend now. Eddie is a lifelong friend. Mel, Bob, Randy, Blake, you guys are lifelong friends. Tanisha, I've known you for a long time. You guys become, John, I've known you forever. I think, Robert, you've been around for a while. Yeah. You guys just become, Tori, I can't get rid of her, I try. Try to get rid of her, it doesn't ever work. But we have such a tight-knit group, and it's because of a lot of reasons. I think a lot of you know that I shoot from the hip. I'm not going to give you any information or any advice or any business strategies that don't work. Everything I show you works. It's stuff that I really do in my real business day to day. Most other people will never even share those trade secrets with anybody. I'm not only willing to show you these, but I'm also willing to give you my actual marketing campaigns that I use. Like, whoever does that? No one. And with Travis, because now I have to start thinking, am I calling you the right person now? Yeah, so keep it out there. With him, I've done something that I've never done with anybody. Because he's a high-level apprenticeship group student, I'm actually building his business for him. And then I look at other gurus who do this whole mastermind thing, and I'm thinking, none of them, they have you in a room for 2 days, and they're going to give you some little nuggets of gold here and there, and they're not going to be sitting there building your website for you, or helping you do your book cover, or any of that stuff. Because I'm serious about working with those of you that really want success. And I will do anything I can in my power, using the expertise I've acquired over the last 25 years to help you do that. And I take pleasure in doing that. Can you be any more bored up in the front? He's like breathing heavily, and all this other stuff is starting to freak me out. Are you okay?
Yes.
I know this is boring, just relax. Okay? All right. So, here are your most profitable information publishing products. So when I'm talking about wheelhouse, as we go along today, we're going to be talking about choosing a wheelhouse. Out of everything I've done over the last 25 plus years in the business of marketing, these are probably your best information publishing products. These are the ones you're going to make the most money with. So what's cool about this is not only have I brought 25 plus years to the table as far as experience in business, but I've also now diminished it from just now randomly selecting any product out in the universe to sell to people, but minimizing it to 2, which is your information publishing versus your consumables, and then now diminishing it to 1, which basically is I only want you guys to consider information publishing products, and then now diminishing it to 3. These are your only possibilities. Ron and Eddie in the back, I'm sending you out of the room now. Get out. How rude can you two be? Poor Robert, he's trying to sit there and learn something. Get out. It's always Eddie's fault. You should know better. How are you guys supposed to learn anything when they're just, messing around back there? I know, totally. I know, right? Like, how rude. So this is it, you guys. So doesn't that kind of make your job a lot easier when you're trying to figure out what kind of business you want to be involved in? Now what, Jack? What are you looking at now? He's laughing at some YouTube video he's watching. Do I have to send you outside now too?
I'm not making any noise.
But you're laughing and I hear you. And I want no joy in this room, okay?
Join the corner.
I'm going to send you in the hallway like I did with your dad a second ago.
Where's the dump's cap?
Yeah. I'll have somebody make one for you. Or I'll make one out of paper. Okay, so this is it. So when you pick your wheelhouse, I want you to choose one of these. Now there's another wheelhouse in there that you could potentially choose, but it's kind of fringy. Does anybody know what I mean by fringy?
It's on the front.
And I'm not, yeah, it's on the fringe, and I'm not talking about anything weird like, porn or anything. Although that would be a really good business to get. And that actually is an information publishing business. A lot of people don't know that, but it is. You're selling, magazines and pictures and videos. That's information publishing. Where there's a higher perceived value than the actual piece of plastic or paper is printed on. That's information publishing. Now, it's not going to be that, though. It's going to be more of the metaphysical, self-help, new age type of thing. That's what would be the fringy thing. And so self-help is a huge, huge, huge information publishing type of business, but it takes a certain person to be able to pull that off effectively. For example, you'd have to figure out what types of products you'd want to build in that, and you're not going to get a high enough perceived value to be able to get the same kinds of price points as you would for a stock trading course. Because how much is somebody willing to pay for, say, a 4-week mentorship on how to manifest money? Is it going to be $2,000? Probably not. So it's a kind of a lower end information publishing product, but as times tend to get hard, you can actually mix this in with any one of those specific indicated wheelhouses. So for example, would it be okay for you to have some of the self-help stuff mixed with, say, real estate investing training? I've done it over the years, so I can tell you yes, because it's a really nice break for someone who's into learning how to become a successful real estate investor to now also maybe have the opportunity to do some self-help work or some personal transformation or breakthrough work or for wealth attraction. All of that stuff works with any one of these wheelhouses. I don't like to use it as a wheelhouse by itself. I know a lot of people have tried to go down that route or that road, and they have minimal success in most cases. So it always works really well when blended with at least one of the other wheelhouses above it. Does that make sense? Yes? So, what we want to do is choose one wheelhouse. This is a wheelhouse picture, I guess, just to give you guys a visual of what a wheelhouse is, because especially the young ones, you guys probably don't even know what a wheelhouse is, do you? I don't even really know what it is. What is it? It's like a house that...
Some water, for grinding flour and make electricity.
Yeah. Yes. there's several different types of wheelhouses, but yes, for grinding grain, for grinding. So back in the old days, you had to move this big machinery to be able to grind grain or flour. And so sometimes they would actually use natural resources, natural power resources, even way back then, which would be water. So they would use the water to turn these big, what do they call it? I don't know what they were. What? You know what I'm talking about? Like
Stone grinder.
Yeah, like a stone grinder or something. And then they would need massive physical effort to make it work. So they would actually use natural resources like the water to be able to turn these big things inside the wheelhouse. So that's why we call it a wheelhouse, because the house itself is composed of several different things that have to make the whole thing work. So the whole entity needs multiple components or cogs inside to make it work. So yes, Bob.
The captain of the ship is in a wheelhouse because he has the wheel to guide the ship, and he has a whole lot of other things that have to be done to make that work.
Right, so as you mentioned, a captain of a ship is in a wheelhouse to be able to control what's happening, but there's a multitude of different things going on the ship that have to make the whole thing work correctly, to make him be able to steer the ship correctly. And if he doesn't have the other components working under that same umbrella, then none of it works. So the wheelhouse is just basically the overall schematic. So is this the time for you to tell me, what would be if you really want me to get upset, but would this be the time for you to tell me, I want to work in multiple wheelhouses? Is that what you want to tell Monica? Never. Never. You will choose one. One. And don't ask me later even if you should get another one later on. Don't even ask me that. Because what do you think I'm going to say? No, get that one up and running and becoming a multi-million-dollar business first, and then let's talk about a second wheelhouse. But until that time happens, we are working with how many wheelhouses? One wheelhouse, that's it. One wheelhouse. All right? So, on the other side of the wheelhouse, the part that's actually turning the water, you have your offers and your customers. Your customers are what is being turned into the wheelhouse. So that is what we mean by wheelhouse. So everybody will start with what we call a rim. Remember I talked about it a little bit earlier? A rim. It's basically like a basketball hoop rim, where it's where everybody starts. And then once everybody starts in the rim, all of your leads, your customers, your prospects come into this one area, this one funnel. You're going to have your one multi-million-dollar funnel that you want to throw everybody in. For Travis, it's probably going to be his book funnel. That's going to be his rim. He's going to send everybody to the same spot. And so this is what this represents. It's what we call our front-loading system. This is a Monica-made term that you will find in no other marketing book or course anywhere. I call it front-loading, where you're basically getting new customers, new blood to buy something from you. And it's usually for a small amount of money, because they don't know who you are, and you need to start the process of building a relationship and building trust, right? So, what you do is you imagine this conveyor belt. I just love this little belt thing. And even though all of these little areas over here could represent multiple types of marketing, I guess you could say, techniques or marketing strategies. For example, one might be YouTube videos, another one might be a magazine ad, another one might be direct mail marketing pieces. So you can see that each one of those conveyor belts of different color boxes would be a different marketing avenue. They're all being fed into the same spot. See, I wish I would have known this when I first got started with my business. Why do you think that? Why is it important for Travis to send everybody to his book funnel first? But yeah, but there's another key reason, just for the sanctity of the entire empire he's building. Why does he want everybody to have and read this book first?
Credibility.
Well, not just credibility, he starts everybody with, this is my base education. So by the time I'm talking to you on the phone, I know that you've read this book. I know where you're standing in this whole process because A, you've read the whole book, which means you're really super interested. And B, I don't have to describe everything to you over the phone like I'm trying to teach you a whole full-on seminar for the next hour because I know that you've got this book and read it. This is the base level of information you need to come to the table with. So now I know everybody that's gone to the book funnel, which is his RIM funnel, has gotten and read this book. Now I know where everybody's coming into when they start ascending up the ladder. So when they call me on the phone, I know that they know about the School of Hard Knocks and my other chapters in this book. They know at least that. So now I'm not having to describe everything to them like they're in kindergarten, because they've read all the basics of how the business works. And now by the time somebody's calling me on the phone for my mentorship group, or my higher level stuff that I have, or my courses or whatever, I know they at least understand this and we're all on the same page. I did not know this when I first started out. I didn't start off selling books. I think my first book was Apartment Building Millionaire. By the way, if anybody has a copy of that, I'd like one back because they're all gone now. You still have a copy? Can I buy it from you?
I have a signed copy.
Please tell me the logic behind me paying more for a book that I signed for you that I can sign myself.
But you made the mistake of saying, I'm going to buy it back. You offered up, you opened the door.
Yeah, well I did. I don't need my own autograph. I can handle that on my own, thank you. But everybody that comes through now, Travis knows that this is the base education. It's almost like taking a college course and getting that first college packet from your professor. And it usually has what? The curriculum, what the expectations are of homework, what you're going to learn in this course, when things are due. Not really, that's not what this has, but it just basically gives you the rundown of everything you need to expect as we progress forward in this together. And then you decide as the prospect, am I going to go forward with him? Am I going to drop out of this? Am I not going to do it? Just like you do with the college course. Like, am I going to finish this? Am I going to take a withdrawal? Am I going to take an F? Whatever. Does that make sense? So you want everybody to start with this, with something, as an entry point. Again, I wish I would have known this in the beginning, because then I would have had fewer people just all over the place. Like, well, I don't really understand your real estate methodology, and I don't really understand, if I would have had a book in the beginning, everybody would have been starting off with in the same place. And then there would have been my understanding of where they are, and what they understand, their understanding of what they're supposed to understand before they move forward with me, and there's no miscommunication and no unfulfilled expectations. Does that make sense? And then by the time they read this book, what kind of prospect are they by the time they're picking up the phone to call you? Hella qualified, exactly. And it makes your sales job a lot easier to sell them anything else, doesn't it? Hell yeah, it does. Hell yeah, it does. All right. Do you think it's okay if I take a 5 minute?
Sure.
I'm going to take a 5 minute, you guys. 5 minutes. I got it.
We're back.
No kind of
Okay. I have something for Randy when she gets back. All right, everybody. 15 minutes to lunch, so let's keep going through this. Okay, so everybody has an entry point, which is your RIM. Now, if you don't have a book, do you have to worry about a book? No, not right now, you don't, because we're going to be working with the affiliate program. However, to set yourself apart from the competition, even if you do plan on continuing to sell affiliate programs, I do recommend that you whip together some kind of book. I will be talking about that either later today or tomorrow. It's not hard. Ask Travis/Trevor. I'm just going to call you that just in case I screw up.
Hey, you.
And he wrote it from his, and he's actually, okay, so this is, it was so hard for him that he had to like skate under the, try to skate to the deadline. And now all of a sudden, right before we get here, he's like, I want to start writing another book. So how far are you in the next book, in the second book?
I'm actually 25,000 words.
So that's what he's about halfway through. These books are not long, okay? Your average book will be anywhere between 30 and 50 or 60,000. The Lost Secret book is only 60,000 words. I originally wrote it, it was 110,000 words. And they kept chopping and chopping and chopping. I honestly think they took too much out or whatever. And then it was down to 60,000, and that's still a bigger book. You can get away with 30 to 50,000 words easy. In fact, you can almost even end the book pretty soon. Like you got between 5 and maybe 10,000 words left, and that's it. These books are easy to write. They don't have to include the life and times of and the world history of. Just keep it concise and to the point. Yes?
Recommendation, to cut down on intimidation about writing that many words, because it was overwhelming when she suggested how many words, because I've never wrote a book, never even thought about it. Come up with a deadline. You have to be serious about your deadline. Of course, she gave me one, so that was a pretty easy deadline, but still give yourself a deadline, but at the same time, then divide how many days between now and that deadline, and how many words you're going to write, and that's going to tell you how many words per day you need to write as a minimum to hit your goal. And that's what I did to break it down.
Yeah. Well, okay, so what he said, is I have to tell people in webinar land, is that you have a deadline. And I gave him a strict deadline. And when you have a deadline, you know you have to complete a certain amount of words to be able to meet that deadline on the progress of your book. But also, too, it helped a lot that I had you on the phone, and I actually told you what the chapter should be. And then we just so happened, because normally I record our phone calls, and for some strange reason, I just always forget to record yours. I don't know why, you're like the only one. And so as we got into chapter 10, I'm thinking, I hope you're writing all of this down, because I don't remember anything I just talked about 2 seconds ago, and we're not recording this conversation. And I think he was writing, because I could hear that he wasn't saying much, so I was hoping that he was writing everything down. But and he stayed pretty consistent to the outline that I gave to him. And so the secret is to come up with what you would progressively think somebody would want to know. If you were going to sit somebody down and share with somebody how to do something from scratch, how would you describe it to them? Like choose maybe 5 or 6 key things that you would teach them how to do in order. So there's your 5 or 6 chapters, and then break down each chapter into, say, 3 parts. Like, okay, so to accomplish the first thing, you have to do these 3 things, and then you just kind of break it down that way. These books don't have to be long. I mean, you guys get intimidated by stuff. There's people that make a fortune just selling these Amazon books and selling nothing else. And I don't agree with that strategy. This is probably part of the reason why I never really got involved heavily into fiction writing, because what happens when you put out a fiction book? Like they read it and what happens?
They're done.
Yeah, they're done with you. I mean, unless you come up with another 10 titles and they're like a raging fan all of a sudden, they're done with you. What's awesome about nonfiction books like that you would write about some kind of information topic like this, does the relationship end after you're done reading the book?
No.
Well, it might for some people.
But that's an evergreen thing, I would think, because it's...
It is evergreen.
You hand it down, hey, look, read this book, I read this book, you know, and go get this book.
Well, it's not even just about evergreen, it's about, there's other sales in here. The best I could do with a fiction piece of work is try to sell them on some other fiction work, which is going to be another $3 sale or $5 sale. Forever. And that we're going back to the jars of peanut butter again. Okay? So how many of those books do you have to sell to actually make a ton of money like Daniel Steele does, or Dan Brown does, or James Patterson? A lot of damn books. There's no call to action for them to do anything else at the back of the book. And that sucks. I hate that business model. I just hate it. But when you have nonfiction work, teaching people how to do one of the wheelhouses as I described, that's just the beginning of the money relationship that you're going to have with your prospect. Because now, if they're really becoming a raging fan, like the chocolate guy was, then now you could sell them more stuff. And then they ascend up the ladder. So the next thing is not going to be a $10 book offer. What's it going to be next? some kind of course that's going to be probably a couple $100. So like the way his money funnel works, if you go there, if you go to 7figureflippingbook.com, you will actually go through the whole process of how I set it up. And how I set it up was very simple. They get the book for free. They just have to pay $9, and I think it's $9.97 for shipping and handling. The first bump we're going to change. Those of you that were lucky enough to actually see his presentation that he did the other day, you'd know what his presentation was going to be for the DVD that we're going to do for his first bump. We haven't decided if we're going to make that $37 or $97, but that's still on the same first order page. And then by the time they get to the first OTO, which means one-time offer, on page 2, after they submit their book order, he created a 5-hour DVD seminar series to teach people from scratch how to get involved in the flipping business if they don't know anything. This was another assignment that I threw at him. I'm like, hey, so can you just sit in your conference room or something at your office and just start talking for several hours in front of a whiteboard? Again, thinking, yeah, he'll never do this, or it'll end up being some 30-minute boring video that nobody's going to watch. No, we ended up doing 5 hours.
Over 5.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be shorter, a lot shorter. And I said, just pretend like you have somebody in your family or a friend of yours that just wants to sit in the conference room with you, and you have to describe how this business works from scratch, how they can get started not knowing anything to getting to where you are as a successful property flipper. And over 5 hours with a whiteboard video in his conference room, he did a very intimate video like that. So that's the first OTO in his funnel. He's selling that video for $197, which I think is a bargain. To have somebody of his stature and experience, like you guys, some of you guys weren't here when he started showing some of his flipping checks. You saw them. They're sizable checks that he makes on these deals. They're real checks. And so to learn the entire business in 5 hours in front of a whiteboard at $197 is a freaking bargain. But what is he still trying to do though? Because you have to remember, somebody might have saw an ad for this book, and they don't know him. So what is he trying to do? Why is he offering such critical key information at such a low price point, only $197? His answer is probably going to be like, well, Monica told me to. I wanted it to be higher. So you're not allowed to answer, but anybody else? Why do you think it's only $197 though?
So you can build a relationship, yes.
You have not built a relationship with these people. They just met you 3 seconds ago, and they decided to take a chance on you, and they just gave you $10. Now you're asking for something else already. And so you have to give them what we call the offer they can't refuse. Like this is an education that's worth, I don't even know if we put that on there, but what is it worth to you to have somebody actually go to your house and stand there in front of a whiteboard for 5 hours to show you the business front to back? Well, for me, it would be worth it. $197, and plus there's a 30 or 60 day money back guarantee on top of it. You don't like the videos, you don't like his hair, you don't like the spooky corner that he has in the back, you don't like the fact that he has no pictures on his wall at his office at all, you send it back, okay? There's no risk at all. And then there's another OTO right after that, after they get through the $197 ask. There's another OTO. Are you starting to notice a pattern here? Aren't the prices kind of going up?
Yes.
You're sending people up the ladder in one transaction. Not waiting years and years or months and months. You're doing it all at once. Now, is everybody going to buy everything in the funnel? No. Somebody might. So the next OTO is my Flip and Profit, which I'm going to be licensing. And we still haven't even ironed out the details on that. But Travis is one of these handshake kind of guys. And you're just like, oh, okay, I'm sure it'll all work out kind of deal. But he's going to be selling my Flip and Profit system. Normally the price to that is $997, but they get a one-time offer of only half. Getting half. I think we might even want to even play with the price point a little more and maybe even take it down to $397, because I think $397 is a more solid price point in a funnel than $497. And with that, not only do they get the Flip and Profit system, but they also, the most critical component of that is the unsecured cash money sources, which is how imperative when you're trying to start a flipping business. It's everything. You can learn how to flip until you're freaking blue in the face, and if you don't have any money to do the deals, it doesn't matter what you know and don't know. You might as well know nothing. If you have no money to do the deals, then you might as well just, let all of that information and education just be, leak out of your head. It doesn't matter at that point. It's not going to help you without the money. So that's how we get people on the final OTO sale. And then at the very end, so this is how it's critical that somebody like Travis, who's probably my best apprenticeship group student. Sorry. Sorry, everyone else who's listening.
Back up, Travis. You gotta be crazy.
Well, he does what I tell him to, and I'm still waiting for you guys to do that.
What? Oh, wait a minute. Let me bust start.
All right. But this is a secret, guys. You might want to write this down because I just learned how to do this and it kicks ass. So at the very end, when they get to the receipt page in the funnel, I'm asking them to do something else. Well, he's actually asking them to do something else. This is something I learned. At the very end, when they're looking at their receipt of their purchase or purchases that they just made, and a little blurb about how this is coming from my warehouse in California, or in his case, in Minnesota, so be on the lookout for a package coming from me from, what is it? Monticello, Minnesota. He has this friendly little video, and he's like, oh, and by the way, as part of your purchase price, we don't mention exactly what they purchased because we don't know if it was just the book or everything in the funnel, we don't know. So based on, included in your purchase price, you also get a free video training right now. Just click on the link below, and you can benefit from that training while you're waiting for the package to come out. Because the package is going to take about 7 to 10 days for it to get to you. So what are they thinking now at the very end? Do they think this is another sales pitch? Or they think, oh, this is probably part of what I just purchased, right? Yeah. It depends on how you say it, because we don't use the bad word, the W word anymore. What's the bad W word that we don't use? Webinar!
Oh, right. Yeah.
We don't use webinar anymore. These are the types of things that start to change. We use online seminar or something like that, but we don't use the bad W word, webinar. So we say training or video training or something. They think, oh, this must be part of my book purchase. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the button. Little do I know that I'm ending up in another sales pitch and going now into another funnel. Now that's the final funnel that we have to build out for Travis, is that when they click on that button and go into his webinar funnel, they are now sent into a 90-minute presentation to sell his $6,000 thing, $5,900, whatever it is, and that's how that works. So we've ascended them pretty quick. They went from buying a $10 book to ascend it up to potentially $6,000. Not will everybody do that? No, but who is going to end up doing that?
Somebody that really wants to do this.
Somebody, the highest quality lead people are going to do this, which is exactly why I've changed my entire marketing plan over the last several years. I used to do back in the 2000s, and by that I mean like between 2005 to 2010, the whole free download report thing. That's what I used to do. Getting people into my funnel with free information, that's what I used to do. And while that worked during that time frame, because people were still downloading reports and actually freaking reading them, now people just don't. So what happens if that you try to keep that old, antiquated, obsolete system in place in today's day and age online marketing? What happens with trying to do that?
You go broke.
You go broke because what's the problem with these free tire kicker leads coming in? I gave you a keyword clue. They saw no value at all in what you're offering. And because they don't have any psychological commitment, they don't have any energy commitment. We talked the other day about how money is energy. Because we were using the demonstration of Eddie selling a bag of oranges on a street corner. Not that I think that that's what's in your future, but it might be if you don't start listening to some of the stuff that...
It's going to be 10,000 an orange.
But if he's standing on a street corner with a bag of oranges, it took him energy to get the oranges, right? Whether he had to pick them himself or rob somebody for them or something, he got the oranges some way, through some energy force, right? And I obviously got my $20, which I'm not going to be spending for oranges, but if they're damn good oranges, you're going to get $20 for them. But this $20, did it take me energy to earn that $20? Yeah, I had to do something. I had to sell something. I had to, do a sales letter, or something had to happen for me to get that $20 on my hand. So I'm exchanging my energy, which is the $20, for his bag of oranges, which is representative of his energy, because he had to collect the oranges in some way. and put them in a bag and then cart the oranges to the street corner and start selling them. So it's an exchange for energy. So there's deep psychological connections with that exchange of energy. There's a level of commitment, right? How many times have you purchased a $10 domain and you're like, well, I wasn't really sure if I was going to do that business, but I actually, spent money on this domain now, so I'm going to use it for something, or I'm going to try to start my business now because I'm committed. Well, it's $10. It's $10. I mean, where's the end-all, be-all commitment there? There really isn't. But you feel like you've got the process started. You feel like you've gone through the first step of getting that $10 domain. So there's a level of commitment. Versus if somebody gave you the domain for free. Or, would it mean anything? Would you have any value? Would you feel a level of investment and commitment? No. So even though this book might be equivalent to the purchase of a cup of coffee in California, not necessarily here, isn't there some kind of level of psychological and energy commitment when you plop down $10, even a small, minuscule amount of $10 for this book? Yes. You, as a prospect, are committed. But not only that, it shifts the entire sales process for people like Travis who are running these funnels, because what kind of prospect is now coming in? Freebie tire kicker freeloader? Or someone at least willing to give you a shot because he or she made a $10 commitment. Believed in you enough to think, this person might have something that I can use. Right? Or not. But at least it's worth $10 to check it out. So you see how the shift is starting to take place, and now why we're charging even low amounts of money just to get people in what we call the rim. So what I urge you guys to do, and in the next several hours, and of course all day tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about the book. It's powerful. I know it seems daunting and intimidating, but I recommend that you do it for at least the $5 to $10 commitment, because it changes the playing field for all of the prospects that come in. They're different people. In fact, it's in my Buy It or Beat It report. I would strongly recommend that you read it over lunch, or read it tonight, because it talks about the entire energy shift of making that $5 to $10 commitment. And yes, you can even sell affiliate programs by having a book, but a book changes absolutely everything, or a small amount of money item. So the issue that I have with people that are trying to sell affiliate programs, unfortunately, is that the only thing that I usually can help people offer is a low dollar amount or book from us, but then you have to split, obviously, the proceeds of that low dollar amount book, or even worse, this is the worst scenario, the free information offered. And you don't want to be doing that anymore. You don't want to be doing that anymore. Those days are over, all right?